The fires are raging in California, and chances are you've seen a fire. You've probably seen a grass fire or a forest fire or a house fire or some neighbor building next to your work caught on fire. How dangerous is that smoke? How much trouble are these people in when you talk about health wise? Once you get out of the fire, how much smoke do you have to breathe before it's a problem? Let's ask Sumit Rai. Welcome to the James Show. How much smoke can you breathe before it becomes a health problem?
Thank you for having me. The amount of smoke that you breathe, any level of it, is actually really dangerous. Firefighters are often dealing with fires over there where you have, a house burning or a building burning, and that alone is sufficient to increase the incidence of cancer in firefighters up to 3x. The thing about the carcinogens that are released, which include what are known as PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that's a chemical that's created when vegetation is burned. And with wildfires of this nature, when you have trees, plants, flowers, all burning across the entire county, the amount of carcinogens, cancer-causing compounds that are released into the air is extremely dense and extremely heavy. There's a second element that for modern society is now going to start to come into play, and we're seeing some problems with that, which is that lithium-ion batteries, rechargeable batteries, those that we have in our laptops, our iPads, our iPhones, our Androids, our tablets, and now with electric vehicles, like Tesla, when those burn, those release an enormous amount of off gases. Those off gases are also of concern right now.
Hey, I'm sorry. What's an off gas?
It's the gas that is released by burning something.
Okay.
So when the battery burns, the gas that comes out, that's called off gassing. And so those gases that are coming out by burning those batteries combined with the carcinogens at this scale makes any level of exposure really dangerous. The reason for that is, as human beings, we are living biological organisms. We constantly have cellular turnover as long as we're alive. Our old cells die, new cells are formed. Our old cells die, new cells are formed, so on and so forth throughout our life. When you have this type of exposure, these carcinogens that get into your body, which can get in through inhalation, which can get in through your skin, for people in LA to keep themselves generally covered, no shorts, no t-shirts, no tank tops, so they can seep in. When that gets into your body, it causes that cellular turnover to potentially have DNA damage and create mutated precancerous cells. In a normal exposure, the degree of exposure is nothing like this. You don't have thousands and thousands of homes burning, tens, hundreds of thousands of acres. With this level of exposure, because of the toxicity that's coming with those carcinogens, you're going to have potentially some damage to your cells. Normally, your body, your immune system, specifically white blood cells, will kill those sort of mutated precancerous cells. That is why everyone doesn't develop cancer. However, unfortunately, once in a while, those kind of mutated precancerous damaged cells can multiply out of control, evade your immune system, and that is when a tumor is born. In a situation like this, where you have such mass destruction occurring and such dense toxic gassing, toxic compounds in the air, because the exposure is so high, the degree to which you will develop sort of those precancerous mutations increases substantially, which means your immune system's job now became a lot harder to catch all of it. And it is more likely that your immune system will unfortunately miss it, which means some of those cells will evade it and start to multiply and unfortunately start to form tumors. So I think we will see cancer rates go up.
So what do you recommend people do who've already been exposed? Just increase cancer screenings?
Yes, I think they need to increase screenings. I think the problem with that is in today's world, there's only 5 recommended screenings. You have mammograms for breast cancer, you have pap smear for cervical cancer, you have colonoscopy for colorectal cancer, you have PSA for prostate cancer, and you have lung CT for lung cancer. There's nothing generally, historically, that is recommended for pancreatic, liver, bladder, esophageal, stomach, adrenal, skin, brain, so on and so forth. I mean, that is why we at Cancer Tech Lab, where I'm the CEO and founder, developed a blood test over the last 15 years that we just released 6 months ago that is a pan-cancer screen that will allow you from a simple blood draw to screen for all of those cancers.
Well, hang on a second. Isn't that what Elizabeth Holmes said?
Elizabeth Holmes said something different. Elizabeth Holmes said that with a drop of blood, I can essentially diagnose any condition.
Right.
First of all, that doesn't make any sense. right? I don't know why people believe. A drop of blood is statistically insignificant. We don't use a drop of blood. We use 40 milliliters of blood.
Whoa.
Second, Elizabeth Holmes came with this 4 vials, 4 tubes. It's half of what you would do in an annual physical because you need statistical significance. Second, we developed a technology over the last 15 years, had 3 issued patents by the US government, a 4th one pending, and we have a federally compliant lab under CLIA, which has been inspected and certified by HHS, Health and Human Services. So I would draw massive distinctions between what a kid in school did, came out and claimed, which didn't make any sense, versus what's been developed here, which is now in the market.
So if you have one of these jobs where you're exposed to chemicals, you mentioned firefighters, that's probably the obvious one, but there's people who are like welders or work in other shops where they're exposed to emissions. Advanced cancer screenings, what do you recommend for those guys?
They should be taking cancer check lab tests. They should go to cancerchecklabs.com and they should get a blood test to get screened. One of the other things we did recently, earlier last year, was create a 501c3, a nonprofit called Save a Firefighter. You can go to saveafirefighter.com and you can learn about all the exposure that firefighters have to cancer. And I would recommend that everyone make a donation and try to be the heroes behind these heroes. We are attempting to provide free screening to all firefighters across the country because, again, they face up to 3 times the incidence of cancer to be the first responders trying to save our homes, our families, our communities. Firefighters don't generally die from fires and collapsing buildings. They die from cancer. It represents 72% line of duty death, almost 3 out of 4. It is the number one cause of line of duty death, cancer. And it is because of this exposure. And when they have this exposure, it's generally not at the scale of a wildfire. It's usually at the scale of a home or a building burning down, and even that is sufficient to, again, increase their incidences up to 3x. So anyone that wants to support the firefighters, I really would recommend that they go to saveafirefighter.com and make a donation to help our firefighters get screened. Separate from that, if you yourself are in that environment, you need to get screened. So go to cancerchecklabs.com and get screened.
Sumit Rai, thank you very much. Also, saveafirefighter.com. I didn't even know this website existed. Thank you for telling me about it.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.